Welcome back to CfTesla. We're here on day 3 with the Yoke steering wheel, and today we're going through some of the top, 10, 13 comments and things I have noticed in the 48 hours I've been driving with the wheel, as well as different, I guess you would say kind of advice that I've gotten about it so far. So we're going to try a bunch of these out today and just see how it all starts coming together. Now remember, I'm still undecided how I like about this wheel. There are things I do like for sure though. So let's get into some of these. Number one, the most obvious and prominent thing about this wheel is the turning radius. The part that you're going to have to get used to the most is that you're just going to have to turn differently. Whereas you can take a round wheel, kind of walk down the side. You can't do that with this. So I've gotten a few different suggestions. One was that U-turns are going to be really tough. So let's do a U-turn here and I'll show you what it looks like just kind of stock without really talking much about it. So if I'm going to turn a U-turn here, put it in drive inside of my gravel lot here where my motorhome is parked, you can see that a full circle is what it takes. The steering wheel is completely doing a full circle right there. And if you keep your hand kind of in the corner, run it like this, that's really how that gets done. Now, I've heard other suggestions such as you can take your finger here in the corners and you can press like that to do the U-turn. I actually found that kind of awkward. You can do it on both sides of that to make the U-turn. But I've just found that just keeping my palm right here, the downside I see to that is if it slips, that'll be really easy to do. There's nothing else to grab on if you slips. You know how like before when you're driving around wheel, it slips, you can just kind of grab it. You can't do that with that. So there is definitely a little bit higher level of danger with this wheel just simply because it's so different. I definitely did find myself doing a lot of crossing like this, just trying to keep both hands on the wheel. Because if you're only putting one hand on the wheel, you can do it a lot of different ways. But to keep two hands on the wheel where it's safe, where it's not going to slip, you really kind of have to do a lot of this crossing stuff when you're doing sharp turns. And really, all over in the cities where it really makes that big difference. So watch, for example, now as I turn onto this road out of this parking lot here. I'm kind of at a straight road, a bit of a T, and I want to turn to the right. You really are aware of just how rectangular this steering wheel is. When I'm going to be in turn status, that's not even, it feels like I should be turning that way. The wheel is definitely pointing that way. It's very pointed, but that's not nearly enough to actually make the turn. So watch what I have to actually do to complete the turn and why it's different here. So as I go, I got to spin it all the way like that. It's like doing a full 360 with the wheel, which it's not a huge deal. Like if you really want one of these, you're just going to put up with that and it's going to be just fine. But again, the point of this video is to really point out the biggest differences I'm seeing with it, no matter how small or big they happen to be. The next thing I want to talk about is the shape of it. Now you do have an inverted trapezoid option, or you have the trapezoid. I have the white leather with carbon fiber trapezoid shape. Now, the trapezoid means it's coming out in the corners and then going in. The inverted means it kind of comes in like this and then goes in. And I think that I would like the trapezoid like this a lot better than the inverted trapezoid, because already when you're holding like this, you can feel your hand getting more grip as the steering wheel kind of pushes into your palm. But if it was inverted, you would have a lot harder time keeping your hands on the wheel. If you'd slip even more, because like I said in the video yesterday, is even holding it like this, like I was doing most of the day, especially through that fast part, I felt my hands getting kind of sweaty and wanting to slide a little bit. So I couldn't imagine inverted would be very good. One thing that was brought up multiple times in the comments yesterday was that a normal yoke steering wheel, when it's attached to a car that's designed for a yoke steering wheel, that when you make a turn like this, that's a full turn. Whereas we're putting it on a vehicle that you have to do a full 360 in order to do a complete turn. And so for that reason, a lot of people were mentioning that it's not exactly practical and that it's going to be a little bit more awkward. Whereas if it was put on a vehicle that was designed specifically for this, that wouldn't be an issue. You would not be doing the cross turning because you simply would be making the full turn just by something going like this with the wheel. It would stop right there. Again, I haven't verified any of that. There's other people that made comments contrary to that. I'd be curious to know more about what other people you think about that, but that's really where that is at. I don't really mind having to do the full turn, knowing what I'm getting into. I would buy this because I think it's cool, because I think it's fun, and it's kind of exciting, not because I think it's going to be an improvement on my turning in town. Also, I want to take a minute to thank everybody who has subscribed to my channel and taken the time to hit the like button and leave a comment. You don't know how much it actually impacts these videos and the algorithm and makes it worthwhile for me. So if you're liking this kind of stuff, just do me a favor. It literally takes no effort on your part. Go down, hit subscribe, hit the like, and then come right back into the video. Do that for me, thanks. Next, there were some comments down below in the last video that because they had the heated steering wheel in their new Model 3s or Ys, that they couldn't swap out for the Yoke even though they wanted to. Now, I haven't actually used it. I haven't haven't verified how good it is, but Handshell does make a heated version of this. When you're checking out, the very last option is for a heated wheel, and it claims to work really well, and it's priced so you'd think it works really well. So, you know, that I don't think is an actual objection. If you really want the Yoke and you have the heated steering wheel, they do make an option for that. Now, next I want to really talk to you about what it's like driving in a city with the Yoke, because most of the turns you're making are kind of 90-degree turns. I'm coming out again out of this parking lot, and you can see I have to grab and do a very sharp turn to get out. And that's pretty much every turn, whether you're turning into a parking lot or whatever, you're going to be making that kind of a turn. So right up here, I need to turn into this shopping mall here. I have to drop off a shock for my bike. So I turn on my blinker and I make the turn. And again, I have to twist the wheel 360 degrees, which is the way I always twisted the wheel, but it's really different this time because again, I'm turning a rectangle, or a trapezoid, I guess they're calling it, rather than turning the entire, you know, circle wheel, which just feels different. It's just a little bit more effort, but I'm telling you, every time I do it, it gets easier. Turning into the parking lot here, you know, your hands just sort of go where you train them to go. And the more I drive with it, the more I'm able to find the right spots. The only thing that I keep thinking about that kind of makes me nervous, but has never happened is, well, maybe a couple times, but I'm not saying it wouldn't happen with a regular wheel either, is I'm always holding it right here to make these turns or trying to hook in there, but it's interesting when you try to hook and to turn it. It's actually quite stiff to do that, even with two fingers to make that turn, even when you're moving. So I'm often holding it right here to get the maximum leverage, and it feels like my hands are just going to eventually just slip right off like that. So that's why I always have my other hand down here kind of helping it, but a lot of times it's just sort of, you know, it's just awkward. And I find that's a word I use a lot, is the word awkward. And I'm just wondering, will it always be awkward, or will I eventually feel it to be more normal? Now, the consensus of those who've had these for a while say that they love them. And all the comments that I've gotten have said that they would never go back once you get used to it. Take a look at some of the comments I got yesterday, and you can see that people seem to be fairly happy with them. Now, watch this as I try and do a U-turn. I got the wheel cranked all the way. Looks like I'm going straight here, but you know, you do have to spin it the whole way around. And I mean, let's go around this roundabout here real quick and just see the real difference. This car is going to think I'm crazy, but you still have to do a bit of crossing. It's not that big a deal. This hand can feel normal up here, but this bottom one has to keep pushing it. It is quite interesting. Like at the very end there, it was almost a full X. My arms almost touched each other, getting all the way through there. I know I'm beating a dead horse on this, but I just want to be honest about the way that this is and kind of as I'm processing the new way of driving it. I feel like it's one of those things where if you're driving for fun, you will never get annoyed, you'll never get bored of it. But imagine you're a businessman just going on long drives to clients' homes, you're on the phone, you're, you know, maybe having to fiddle with your briefcase, or you're just basically, you're multitasking all the time. This is not going to be something that you would opt to have, because your focus needs to be just being safe on the road, and then also because you're distracted, you need to not have to worry so much about your hands on the wheel. I feel like the target market for this is definitely going to be your enthusiast, your Tesla enthusiast, your sports enthusiast, someone who wants to just have fun in his car, has got some money to burn, and it fits that person well. Also, if you're one of those drivers that drive often with their knee, which probably includes over 80% of drivers, me included, that you drive with your knee and maybe you do something over here, and I know I shouldn't be telling you these things, but you know, we often do that. Maybe I don't know what all the reasonings are. You just sort of are just kind of hold the steering wheel with your knee. You cannot do that with this wheel. If you push up with your knee, take a look what happens here. So if I want to just kind of hold the wheel straight and kind of just kind of keep me straight with my knee, if I push up, it pushes the wheel to the right. Okay, you have to get way under here to put the center right in the middle. So your force is going right through the middle of it, and to try to steer with it a little bit, it's just not going to happen. Now, I know that 10 or 12 comments just went down below saying, well, you shouldn't be doing that anyway, that's unsafe. That's right, you shouldn't. But people still do it, so I want to be clear about that's not something you can do with this wheel. And so it's just another little thing that maybe you don't think about that you might realize once it's installed. So if that's a big deal, if that's something that matters, well, there's a little information. Now, there was a lot of comments on the price of these wheels, and I will tell you this, that they are made of insanely good quality. The leather feels incredible. The carbon fiber feels amazing. And one of the biggest things that you see with the quality of this is just how easy it is to install and just the pure strength of it. Let's let this bus in here. Because what happens is a lot of these wheels you go and buy that are, you know, maybe $500-600, you have to swap the guts from the other wheel into this one. And it's a kind of an involved process. There's a lot of little moving parts inside of here underneath this airbag. And with the Hanshow wheels, that's not the case. Part of what you're paying for is the convenience of not having to do any of that. You just simply put it on the car, pop the airbag in. You do not have to transfer the guts over. So that's part of the price. Now, if you don't want to pay for the second set of guts, essentially, and you are okay with learning how to swap the parts over and you're willing to risk that, then great, go for it. Save yourself some money. I'm sure those other wheels are fine, but you're not going to feel like you bought something that wasn't worth it. It feels like you purchased an expensive item, because you did. It's a big investment or cost, not necessarily an investment. There's not much of a yield on this, but you definitely don't feel like you overspend when you're holding the wheel. Now, in yesterday's video, we got a lot of comments talking about this being like a cockpit. And I will tell you, I've never been inside of a fighter jet or well, I haven't been in a cockpit of an airplane. But if I had, I would imagine it does feel something like this in terms of the wheel. So if maybe you failed at a fighter pilot school, this may be the closest you get. Now, just watch different movements that I have to make as I do different things in the parking lot. So first, if I want to park over here and drive in, I come up along the side, hand is kind of pressed right in the dead center of that, and I'm spinning it around. It's a low speed thing, so it's really not that big a deal, and it goes right in, okay? No problem. But again, a little bit weird feeling on your hand, and I have big hands too, so remember that. If you have small hands, you know, that would be a lot more challenging. I don't know that you would even attempt that if you had smaller hands, in which case you'd spend most of the time doing a lot of the crossing. If I wanted to back up, now luckily we got great cameras on our Teslas, and we can mostly use you know, our cameras to do the backing up. But what if we were backing up straight across the parking lot? You feel like you have great control for that. That feels very natural, perfectly fine. Now, the people inside this church are got to be thinking that I'm crazy. What's this guy doing out here? But it's all right. People have been calling me crazy my whole life. And same thing if I want to back in. If I'm driving and I want to back into the spot right here on the side of me, put it in reverse. That's a blinker. Put it in reverse and back in. Same kind of thing. I can turn and look like this, make sure I'm in the right spots, checking my mirrors. But the whole time, now if I had two hands on the wheel, this is what it would look like. Grabbing, constantly having to maneuver your hands differently, because you can't do the thing where you just kind of let it slide and grab. That's not a function you're able to do when you're driving. And that is actually probably one of the hardest things about this, because now watch this. Watch as I turn right here onto the main rail. Like that, I have to let go of the wheel. I can't just let it slide in my hands because it's not a perfect circle. So watch, I'll do it again here. I'm gonna turn the corner here. Now when I let it go, I have to let it go and grab it. Now I could walk it back, but that would be something new I would have to be learning to do. That's not the way I've always learned to drive and done it. And to be honest, I don't know many people that do drive that way. Generally speaking, when I pull out, I just fast like that, just let it go, and it's, you know, you got your hand around it, just sort of slides through and you just grip it when it's straight. That, you can't do that with this kind of wheel. Your hands have to track it the whole way through. Now I want you to take a look at this from my perspective. I mounted the GoPro directly to about 1 inch to the right of my eye. Okay, so you're seeing exactly what I'm seeing at the same level that I'm seeing it at. Now I am 6'1". So, and a lot of my height is in my torso, and so I sit fairly high to the ceiling. And right now, there's a lot to love about this view. I mean, the Hanshow screen, for starters, makes it feel for the first time that it wasn't an afterthought, like it was actually supposed to be there. It's front and center, like I have an actual speedometer. I'm not looking through a wheel to see it. So if you're planning on getting that, then this is a fantastic way of doing that. It looks great, it feels great, and you just have a lot to see here. And you definitely are aware that there's no wheel right here. You're very aware of that. It feels like you have, like you're gonna fall through the windshield almost, like it's just so right there. And I love that about it. It feels really great. You easily have access, like I mentioned in the last video, to your other gear stocks, but that's kind of an interesting concept, because if the new Model S Plaid doesn't have these at all, then that's kind of a moot point going forward. They're never going to make the Model 3 Plaid like we keep calling this one, but you know, if they did, I wonder what it'd be like to not have those there. Man, that just seems so interesting. Who here watching this video actually has the Plaid, and what do you think? Here we are going through another roundabout. You can see there's not a whole lot I have to do here, but it seems like at the end of it, as it gets a little bit tighter, I do have to end up crossing a little bit more. And I do find that it's actually a little bit more jerky than the round steering wheel as well, because of just the last minute kind of maneuvers you have to do. And I think I have to attribute 90% of that to the fact that I'm just not used to it. And I would imagine all of that will go away as I spend more time with it. Now, one question that I got was, does it feel any different in comfort, standard, or sport mode? So let's give that a try and see what we think about that. So let's go into comfort here, and I'm going to stay in this neighborhood because there's lots of turning involved for me to actually test this out. So here we go. Here's comfort mode, which is just going to make the steering a lot softer. It's not going to change how often I have to spin the wheel. It's not going to have anything to do with that. It's just going to be how much easier it is to drive. And what I'm wondering is, if I were to put the 2 fingers in here as was suggested, would I have more ability to maneuver and a little bit easier? So if I'm going to turn left right here, I put my finger down here, it definitely turns easier. Let's just see here. If I put it here and turn, you can do it. You're still pulling, like you have a lot of pull still on your fingers. Let's go more to the extreme now and see if we can really make this difference. So go to sport now, and you can just feel it instantly tug on the wheel. Like 2 fingers there is a lot more work. I don't think anybody who has weak fingers or small fingers is going to enjoy that. It definitely stiffens it up to the point where you know, you're feeling extra sporty, which is actually the way that I'd probably drive with this wheel, to be honest. I mean, you put this wheel on to be a bit of a sporty experience, and so having that stiff like that is nice. I had mine in comfort mode, but I'll probably leave it here in sport. This is actually kind of cool. Okay, so if you've made it to this point in the video, you've probably watched the other 2 as well. The first video was the install and the full review of the Yoke steering wheel. The second one was an interactive 360 video of driving down a windy road with the Yoke wheel and just kind of having some fun with it. And now here's this one, answering the comments and going through some of the questions that we got on the Yoke wheel. Now, this is number 3 in the series, and there's only gonna be one more video, so hang in there. And that video is gonna be of my wife and her first impression behind the wheel of a Yoke wheel. And this is something most people have never driven with in their life. So we're gonna mic up my wife, and if you've ever seen her on this channel, she's very opinionated. She's not afraid to tell me exactly what she thinks. So stick around for that, and that should be out here in the next couple weeks. Thanks again for watching. See you guys on the next one. Now, if you're new to my channel, we do all sorts of updates, drive, challenges, how-to videos, stuff that's entertaining and useful knowledge for you with your Tesla. So take a minute and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit that bell notification so you know when a new video pops up and you don't miss any of the giveaways. Thanks again for watching. See you on the next one.